This morning, you are going to be hearing from Erin Schmidt, the Chief Product Placement Officer at Ben. Recent signups, Top Women of Media honoree. Erin leads Ben's efforts to help brands navigate the shifting entertainment and advertising landscapes. With over 15 years of experience in this industry, Erin has been involved in iconic product placements, including James Bond switching from his favorite drink to Heineken, Ant-Man working in a Baskin Robbins instead of a Chipotle, and Steve and Nancy eating KFC's finger-licking good chicken from KFC and Stranger Things. But you can ask questions to Erin throughout the conversation. Just use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and then we will get you started. So Erin, my new friend Erin, jump on. Let's
start. Hey, Marcy. Thanks for having me. And you had me at Mimosas. That sounds really exciting and fun, and I can't wait to go to that event. So we are going to be talking about product placement today, a subject I am very, very passionate about. Marcy, I had shared with her yesterday when we were catching up. I'm actually second generation product placement. My mother started doing product placement and is actually responsible for some of the most iconic placements in history. Started doing product placement in the early 80s. So please ask questions as we go through all of this. I am a wealth of very unnecessary knowledge as we go through all of this, but wanted to kick it off with who is Ben and what do we do? Hopefully this is short and sweet for all of you so we can get into the nitty-gritty of really the power of product placement. But Ben is really a pioneer in product placement. We are a technology company that is focused on bringing brands into content. And really empowering artists along the way. There's billions of artists as we look at the entire landscape. My team is responsible for scripted and unscripted content that lives across film and streaming and television. We also have a full influencer arm as well. And we are really combining art and science here. We have over 40 years of relationships in this space. Again, I mentioned that we are pioneers. We started out as a company called Norm Marshall and Associates 40 years ago and became Ben about 7 years ago. We are also supported by the technology of being a Bill Gates company. So we apply data and technology to the art of relationships. That's not only helping drive the most iconic integrations in the world, but it's also helping us understand where we should be putting product in content, predicting the future results of any unproven piece of content, but also how those integrations are performing for our brands and really justifying why brands should be in this space and measuring the effectiveness of those integrations. When we talk about Ben, we are the #1 recognized global leader in product placement. We have been around for 40 years, and that's important because Hollywood is an entertainment relationship-based industry. But with that, we're also a global organization with over 300 employees in 20 languages spoken across the world, because content is global, and it is important that we're attacking this landscape at full speed and giving our brands an opportunity and giving creators the opportunity on a global scale. And we're doing this at scale. We've delivered over 15,000 integrations in the last 4 years. And this to me is really important, not because of the scale of integrations, but that is an impressive number when you think about the amount of creators that we've helped support to get content created. We've also really focused on understanding this landscape and empowering the creators in the right way. So we are the exclusive partner of the Producers Guild of America, and we are the founding sponsor of the Property Masters Guild, which is really important because the Property Masters are the last people that a character are responsible for a character holding a product. They are the last people on set to ensure that that character is holding that product. And they were the first people 40 years ago that we started working with. Really powerful players in this space. But the industry is changing. I have been doing this, Marcy mentioned I've been doing this for about 15 years. Again, our agency has been around for 40 years. In the last 2 years, we have seen more change than we saw in the last 40 years. And why is that? It's because audiences have simply a different expectation of their entertainment experience than they did 2 years ago. The relationship between brands and audiences has to change. TV used to be a structure of interruption. It was brands could come in and support content through commercial breaks. But with the emergence of ad-free streaming, there's been a massive shift in how consumers actually want to experience content, and they don't want to go back. We have nearly 15,000 people are cutting the cord on a daily basis. Am I on the wrong screen?
You are on the wrong screen. Yeah, if you can switch over to swap display.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect, thank you.
Of course. Like I said, over nearly 15,000 people on a daily basis are cutting the cord and really switching to streaming services. And it's an important metric because that's the way that brands need to engage with integrations, and product placement becomes the answer for brands. And you think about examples like Cheerios, where we're actually driving the story forward in a way that consumers actually enjoy, where Mrs. Maisel is a mother and Cheerios was very focused on targeting moms with kids. And this became just an authentic opportunity within that storyline. The media landscape is changing rapidly, and we are going to continue to talk about this and why this is important. The trend of ad skipping and ad avoidance has become far too powerful for us to ignore. According to research by Hulu, and this is an interesting one, 91% of the respondents, and I'm going to caveat this, that this happened before the pandemic as well, this research study, because over 91% of respondents would rather give away their music service, social media, or even their favorite item of clothing rather than give up their TV service, which I find hard to believe since we all wear sweats now. But again, this happened before the pandemic. So there you go. And it's not just that. People are using ad-free platforms to watch content. They are actively avoiding whenever possible. When people are faced with ads on networks or platforms that still include advertising, 91% are still reporting that they're skipping those ads. And this behavior extends beyond even television into music as well, with Spotify and YouTube Music allowing listeners to opt into ad-free environments. And the opportunity is growing massively. Netflix alone reported spending over $17 billion in content this year. And we have to remember that HBO Max, Peacock, Paramount Plus all launched during a pandemic in which no content was being filmed. So we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg of the amount of content that's going to be available to all of us. And to me, that's really exciting because each of these platforms are curating opportunities for our individual desires and needs. We all want to watch something different. There obviously are the global phenomenons. I know everyone's talking about Euphoria. It's been the most tweeted about show in our history, but there are also very niche opportunities in which you can target consumers. It's creating a massive, massive opportunity for brands. And what's interesting too is Netflix, their subscriber base of 208 million domestically is bigger than the top 3 cable providers alone. And like I always say, everything is streaming. Streaming isn't just what streamers, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu are distributing. Every piece of content, unless it's sports or news, has a streaming opportunity. So we look here at CW. This is a great example in which a CW series like All American, if you were to buy a 30-second spot on All American, you would be limited to the 1.2 million people who watched it on linear television on the CW network. But if you integrate into it, in addition to your TV spend or integration alone, you have the 1.2 million who watch it via linear. You have another 1.6 that watch it on the CW app. You have 8 million people who watch it in the first 140 days after it moved to Netflix. And for all CW shows, that's just 7 days after the season's conclusion, which is really important. And I think we're seeing this, and we're seeing a shift in so many things. Sorry, my dog is driving me crazy. We're seeing so many opportunities in which even the audience base is changing from linear to streaming. There's just so much opportunity here that goes above and beyond advertising when you're inside of the content. And more brands have begun to recognize the power of product placement, and it's an essential part of their marketing mix. Research has shown that entertainment drives brand preference in a way that advertisements just can't. Earlier this year, IPG Media Lab published research showing that branded content actually leads to a quadrupling in purchase intent compared with traditional video ads alone. Hulu showed that product integrations actually deliver 89% higher purchase intent and 74% higher brand awareness than traditional 30-second commercials. And we have conducted a lot of our own research. This is a priority for us at Ben to understand the impact of integrations, as I kind of alluded to earlier on. But in Q2 of 2021, and this is an example of an integration for Benjamin Moore, we worked with a third-party analytics firm called 605, who is a partner of ours today. And in this study, we really wanted to understand the integration for the brand's color matching app for Benjamin Moore, their color matching app, in a show called Walker on CW, and what the result would be for an increase in visits to the Benjamin Moore website. And the results were really outstanding. The study showed a 31% increase in web visitations between an audience exposed to that integration and one that was not exposed to that integration, or an unexposed audience to that integration. So we're seeing a big increase in that website traffic from those who viewed our integration. And again, I'm going to just keep saying this. We are focused on understanding the impact of integrations. We need to understand how this is working. So a few more examples I wanted to share with you. And this is one of my favorite, looking at Buick and Big Little Lies. Buick typically was really looked at as an older person's vehicle. They wanted to shift perception. They really needed to start to look at being this luxury brand for moms. So we integrated the Enclave into HBO's Big Little Lies, aligning it with Reese Witherspoon's character. And as a result, we saw a 69% increase in brand opinion amongst the Buick's target audience, and an 89% increase in a likelihood to buy from the people who viewed that integration. Another question we always get is, do people even notice the brands in this content? So we've done a lot of testing around this as well. And so looking at this Katy Perry integration with Cheetos, we saw that 78% of respondents recalled brands from within the music video, and 74% said that integrations increased the likelihood that they would purchase Frito-Lay products. And then we've really focused our advancement in measurement to help us understand the impact on sales. And again, I mentioned 605 as a partner of ours. We are able to measure whether audiences who see our integrations are more likely to purchase a product in retail. And so we conducted a study with 605 on one of our clients' core hydration, to understand that what the impact of their integration in time of Corona was. And we saw a 37% lift in sales between an exposed and unexposed audience around their target demo of 18 to 34-year-olds, and an overall 35% lift in overall sales. But it's not just that integrations are effective. That we're driving impact, but they're also incredibly efficient. And so let's look here. This is a study that we looked at across a client of ours to really understand the impact of an integration versus a 30-second spot. And again, this goes back to the changing consumer habits that we're seeing, in which viewers are streaming content. And so there's a higher lifetime value to an integration. So in this case, we really looked at what a media investment would be for a TV commercial versus 3 integrations. So for this, if around the TV integration, you net out at 11.2 million impressions at a $30 CPM, which is pretty typical for the industry. But by investing that same amount into 3 TV integrations, we actually netted out at a $15 CPM with 21.5 million impressions. And that's only after 7 weeks. Again, this is the gift that keeps on giving. So even after, this is a lifetime value opportunity in which you're seeing far more than that 21.5 million impressions over the course of several years. But it doesn't really stop there. We have to think about the authenticity of integration. The key to these great results is story-driven product placement. You can't just slap a logo in the background or on a billboard or have a billboard be behind the character and that audiences might not ever see. It's about getting brands integrated into the story in a way that audiences find authentic and they actually enjoy seeing. Our role, and it should be everyone's role, anyone who's playing a role in this space and working with Hollywood, is to empower the content, to ensure that the viewer is really enjoying the experience and they feel like the brand is actually driving that story forward. So looking at Old Navy, they came to us really wanting to show how inclusive their sizing was. So we worked across the landscape to really have talking points, work with characters with diverse body sizes to showcase how Old Navy and their clothing types really offered a wide range of variety to every man and woman out there. And from these integrations, one example that we have is Queer Eye. And the results of that integration showed that we had a 22% increase in understanding that Old Navy offered a variety of sizes. So we were actually sharing that message and people were having, they were able to understand and we were able to grow the awareness of the variety of sizes that Old Navy had to offer. And I sent a reel, I believe we sent a reel beforehand just because we know audio and video really never work in these situations. So a few more authentic storytelling moments, and there are so many. And I know we mentioned this earlier, but KFC, this is a really special moment for us in which KFC in season 2 of Stranger Things, the characters are talking about how Barb has gone missing. And it's a really actually sad moment because they don't know where she is, what's going on, and everyone's feeling really solemn about it. And the father kind of breaks the moment by saying, KFC, finger licking good. And it's this comedic moment in a sad storyline in which KFC helped move that story along. In Nancy Drew, we have Gushers, and the character here is just Gushers became synonymous with him as a character. So at every moment in time, a differing character would know that he had Gushers in his hand. And Old El Paso came to us and they really wanted to focus on family mealtime moments and talking about their stand and stuffed taco shells. And so we worked with Rachel Ray to do a whole cooking segment in which she talks about the stand and stuffed taco shells and how they won't fall over when you plate them, which is also really exciting. But some more secrets to our success. I think we can't share all of our secrets, and plus there's still so many more secrets to share, but I think it's important for us to kind of talk through some of the key elements to deliver a great integration program and how you should invest in this space. The first is to focus on campaign. For years in my career, brands would come and say they wanted to be in Stranger Things. That was always the key project that they wanted to work in. And it would be a disservice of me to say, yes, I can get you into Stranger Things, because Stranger Things is, we have to support the art. We have to ensure that the characters and the creatives want to use those products. So we can absolutely talk to the creative team and find out what the story arcs are and see if there's a brand moment in there. But I am never going to guarantee that we can be in a singular show, because you won't be happy with that end result. A brand won't be happy with that end result, because if we are guaranteeing something, we're likely force fitting something. And when you force fit something, it becomes inauthentic. And we had, 3 examples from Chime here. Of a campaign approach, but campaigns really allow us to understand and navigate the landscape to find the creators who want to work with the brand. With that, you get the best creative storytelling for the brand. We deliver more efficient CPMs. We can work in unproven content and those big blockbuster, highly talked about shows, and deliver a diverse range of content for a brand. Additionally, storytelling truly builds brand salience. Unlike ads with product placement, brands don't have to drive the storytelling. They need to be in service to it. Here are 3 examples from Zillow, and I know it won't come as a surprise that no creator has actually naturally written Zillow into a script. We need to find moments of situational salience, and with Zillow, it's been really fun to work with them. We've worked with them for over 6 years, and they were very focused on life-changing moments, not just if a character in a story was going to move, but what were they doing in their life that was changing? Were they getting a new job? Were they starting a family? Were they moving? Were they making a big life-changing decision? And those moments became opportunities for us to work with producers to actually drive the story forward using Zillow. And that's, to me, the most exciting part of our job is when we can read through the lines of a script and understand contextually how a brand can be a storyteller for a storyteller. The next is flexibility, making sure that we are very flexible in how you approach content. You're looking at 3 different examples for General Motors, and I'm going to tell you this: 1 required a media buy, 1 we leveraged our relationships with the production, and 1 we paid a fee directly to the production. And there's no way you can tell between these 3 integrations which is which, because the audience can't either. And so we have to make sure that we're completely surrounding the content, that we're working with networks, that we're working with producers, that in this case, we're working with transportation coordinators or a prop master for a brand, or post-production for digital insertion, whatever that might be. It opens up a huge range of opportunities for us to work with those massive hits and those cult favorites, scripted and unscripted, linear and streaming. It just gives brands so much opportunity to target their audiences and find the right opportunities. And we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about diversity, and diversity truly strengthening the credibility for brands. You're watching 3 examples here from our client Frito-Lay, and in which they were featured in content that had diverse characters and voices. This is truly important to Ben. We've been supporting diverse creators and emerging creators our entire careers and the longevity of those 40 years of being in this space. And we know that when brands work with creators, or with talent that represents the audience, it has impact. Black and Latinx audiences who see themselves reflected in the content that they watch are 23% more likely to purchase a brand or product they see within that piece of content. And the entertainment industry is very relationship driven. We talked about this earlier on, and those relationships can last a lifetime. So connecting with emerging talent and emerging creators today will really lead to a lifetime value opportunity. As an example, Microsoft has worked with Blumhouse Productions and Mindy Kaling from day 1, and have been part of the biggest integrations and been an active part of their careers as they've grown throughout this industry. So where is the industry headed, and really where are we going now? I mentioned very early on in this conversation that in the last 2 years, we've seen more change than we have in the last 40 years. And that change is happening month by month. And many of our clients are really increasing their spend in product placement at this moment because it's getting harder to reach a consumer. And there's different needs, and consumers have different needs. And so product placement is becoming a really effective and important part of a marketing mix. So what are we doing, and really how are we driving this forward? Our success isn't built on relationships and experience alone. As a Bill Gates company, we have also the best technology and industry-leading AI that helps us inform recommendations. This is important. I think we all have human bias when we look at content. Even when we did our AI predictions, we compared it to what Ad Age had released and Adweek had released. And you can see the human bias in predictions because we have an affinity towards certain types of content, or we've seen what's been successful in the past. So we've utilized AI to help us predict how unproven properties will perform in this landscape. We're also predicting that long tail impact of a series. Like we talked about, there's this amazing lifetime value of content. What is that long tail? How will a show perform over the course of its lifetime? It's really important that technology plays a role in this space to help brands navigate this crazy world. Because again, we're just at the beginning of this amazing domination of content and the experience that we all get to have there. And we've talked a lot about the advancement in measurement solutions, and we're really focused on being a solution for our brands, and we're looking at more solutions above and beyond this. But 3 ways over the last year and a half, we've really partnered with brands to understand what they need to invest more in this space. And so we have partnered with several different data companies to deliver the data needed for mixed model integration. This example is from General Mills, in which we were able to gather enough data to be a part of their media mix. And the result, or the output of the media mix, showed that we actually drove about 80,000 cases, which was a similar result to what their linear TV ads and digital video had done as well. And we're doing this for other clients like Old Navy and Chime. We're also doing direct TV attribution and looking at sales. So again, through our relationship with 605, we've conducted about 30 attribution reports over the last 18 months. And these reports explore the actions of households exposed to our integrations versus a control audience of unexposed households. And we're seeing a really great average lift of integrations of our integrations of that exposed audience versus an unexposed audience. So this really works for CPG brands when we look at what we can do from a sales perspective. And in this example, this was a Doritos integration in Riverdale, in which Doritos focused on reaching a Latinx and Black audience. And this integration aligned their product with a league with Mark Consuelos. We all know who he is. And that integration drove an 11% lift in sales, but it had an even larger impact on the core audience, which was that 29% lift. And finally, we're looking at attribution of visits. So we are able to measure the impact of TV integrations on actions like visits to a website or even visits to a physical location like a retail store. So this is an example of Benjamin Moore integration in Walker, which we had talked about earlier. And for this integration, we measured both lifts in web traffic and visits to Benjamin Moore retail stores. And we found that there was a 26% lift in visits to the website among the exposed audience of the core target audience of 40 to 55-year-olds versus their unexposed counterparts. And there was a 17% lift in Benjamin Moore store visits between exposed and unexposed audiences. And my favorite topic, it is the era of globalization. Reed Hastings said a couple years ago when he was talking about Netflix, that Netflix is this global teller of truths. And I think that this is true for all content. And we are in a world in which we can absorb and watch content from around the world with people from around the world. So we're watching shows with people from different countries and enjoying the same experience. You have Squid Games that had 1.65 billion hours watched in the first 28 days. It's one of Netflix's top 5 programs of all time. And of those, 2 are foreign language and 3 are from outside of the US. And foreign films are emerging as some of the biggest theatrical hits right now. I mean, what was Parasite was 2 years ago, won Best Picture. And this year we have 2 nominees of foreign films for Best Picture, which are Drive My Car from Japan and Belfast from the UK. And Never Have I Ever, if you haven't watched it on Netflix, it's amazing. Mindy Kaling's project about an Indian American experience in the US. It reached top 10 in several countries. It's now being adapted in Mexico. So we're just seeing seeing this incredible opportunity to tell new stories in new ways. And to me, this is the most exciting part of, as I think about the future of product placement, and just as a consumer and lover of content, this is what makes my heart so happy. And finally, the opportunity is expanding. We have, over the course of our 40-year history, worked with some of the biggest brands in the space, the nation's biggest advertisers. But now we have this opportunity in which content partners are looking for brands to drive their story forward. So that includes direct-to-consumer brands, digital-first companies like Chime. There's so much going on, and brands are really diving into this space at a speed that I have never seen before. And with that, I think we're going to open it up for questions. I think there's a lot of my team on here.
That's okay. And there's some my team on here, but we're getting good questions. Before we go into Q&A, because I have a couple questions for
Okay,
you. Interesting. And I have a couple questions for our attendees too. So I'm going to launch a poll. Hold on, let me get to it. Just to understand, because I'm a novice. We talked about this the other day. I am a novice. I took that one class. I still have the book.
I love that you still have the book too.
Oh, I knew it was going to come in handy, and haha, I'm right. I'm going to launch this poll. Have you been influenced to purchase an item from the following? Is it streaming? Is it music videos? Is it, social media product placement? I know I purchase everything from Instagram, like this necklace, Instagram. So I would love to just hear what everyone's saying. Oh, I'm not alone. I am not alone in the social media product placement. Thank you. You're making me feel much better. Awesome. Let's share. So a lot of you are, like I said, social media and some of the streaming networks. Not so much music videos. I know I've gotten a couple of things from music videos back in the day, but very interesting. I just wanted to see where everyone else was, because I know I'm on the lower side of the drum bowl. But you brought up a lot of great points. One, I think that's really thought-provoking for me. You talked about how all of your clients want to be in Stranger Things, and that's the end-all be-all show. And really looking at how brands are organically woven into the content. Do you recommend that brands start with the product and try to find the best fit for content, or do they concentrate on the content that's out there and then try to find the right product to go towards the producers and directors and say, hey, we got this product that will work really well? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so our focus is to start on the product. Well, first, we need brands to believe that product placement is where they need to be. And hopefully that's the story that we're telling right now. Is you have two opportunities. One is you have an opportunity to directly connect with consumers. And two, you're empowering art to be made. You're empowering diverse voices. So invest in this space and really make that happen. But then we operate by the 4 C's. That's just how we are. So the first is to look at content, understanding who the audience is of that content. And let's look at a large landscape of content, because we need to connect with those creators and find the right opportunities. And when we have the conversations with the creators, we're looking at character and context. Character and context are very important, because again, when we see a character that we identify with or relate to or admire, it actually does drive a different association and a different opinion change than other characters might. And context, making sure that contextually we understand. So like I mentioned with Zillow, making sure that we understand that Zillow needed to be a part of a life-changing moment. So what are the contextual elements that are really helping drive an integration forward? And if a creator can align with those things, we move forward. If a creator says it doesn't really work, we say, great. We'll come back to you another time on your next project, and we'll find another opportunity, because we don't want to force fit it.
Oh, that's really good. That's really great. I think another point that you spoke about was the strategic product placement and the alignment of culturally relevant talent. I would love if you could just kind of dive a little bit deeper into that and kind of give us what you think are the most important steps of that alignment being like the right fit. Like how is that, how can brands make that right and do it right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of ties into that last topic as well. I think looking from a content perspective, understanding the audience and making sure there's that audience overlap. And even if you're looking to target a new audience, making sure that the content of that audience is in alignment with your strategy. And then it is build that character building. And I think one of my favorite parts of my job is that we do this character building. So working with a spirits company and say they have a whiskey and you want a female character to be represented as a badass, you're going to align her with that whiskey. And you don't even have to explain that she is an amazing woman and she's strong and she's tough. That whiskey is going to do it for you. It's the same thing with a vehicle too. Like you can have different vehicles helping define who different characters are. And so working with brands and creators to bring two visions to life, to me, is what makes that viewer really happy with what we're doing. And I think both sides, specifically brands, have to come in and know what they want, know what that content is, what that character is, what they're trying to accomplish, but let the creator tell that story.
Really good. I think that because we see so much happening with like Netflix and Hulu. They have all this great content, but I like I said, I love the social media part of life, because I do follow the characters from the show and I'm looking at what they're wearing and how they're using certain products. So all of that's just super interesting. You talked about AI technology and that Ben has this, you guys have already started taking the guesswork out of like, really betting on the things that are maybe less than stellar content. How do you see AI changing the way that marketers are implementing product placement in the future?
Yeah, I think there's so much here. I love that. I'm so proud to work for a company that has been early investors in AI technology in the right ways, making sure that we are taking the guesswork out of these opportunities. But I think this is going to continue, like how I see the advancements of AI is to continue to scale our work across the space, really starting to do object identification, potentially even script identification, as I talk about reading between the lines. Like, how can AI advance and scale how a creator can bring a brand in, even though it hasn't necessarily been identified verbally in a script, like written out, right? So I think that's one. And then the other piece that I really am excited about and want to see is that character matching. So you had kind of mentioned it earlier, like right now it's about the data that we have and honestly a little bit of that gut and the experience that we have to know what a brand's looking for. But imagine if AI can really do that identification of like, these characteristics of this character from this script are a perfect alignment to this brand. So I think AI has so much opportunity to build better storytelling, eliminating human bias. I think that to me is what AI does, is you have to have collaborative AI. You still want your human experts. We strongly believe that our human experts bring so much value to the table from a creative perspective, but how do we then eliminate that human bias? And that's where AI will come into play.
I love that, and AI is such a big part of, I feel like that's one of the conversation that keeps coming up as I'm working on events is, where's AI at with gaming? Where's it at with entertainment? Where's it at with, auto and audio? So I love that you still are taking into account that human part, because AI could take over. I mean, it really could, but we need that human matching with it so that, we're not just robots.
Exactly.
Exactly. So I have another poll for our wonderful audience, because I'm going to jump into a question or a topic that you talked at the end. have you noticed, because we're talking about these international phenomena shows, have you noticed the product placement in these foreign language content like Netflix Squid Games or Call Me Agent or some of the films that have come out? Because Erin and I talked about this the other day and I had no clue. And she gave me like a really crazy stat that was like, I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't paying attention. Okay, so okay, well, yeah, a lot of yeses. Okay. Give you a couple, because I know a couple of you are still waiting to vote. Okay. So a lot of you are seeing it, but some of you are like me, you're missing it. You're too enthralled in the plot of things that you're missing it. So this is interesting. I'm gonna and share it with you guys. I'm sorry I shared it. So yes and no. A lot of you are on the yes side, so that's great. My question is, so you said this interesting stat that 60% of the original Netflix TV and film series content was outside of the English language speaking areas. Can you share what you think this shift could do for brands in the way that they are looking at product placement in the future?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give you two answers to that question. I think one is the efficiency element of it. So if you're investing globally, it's one buy for a global audience. So if you integrate into a series in the US and it goes global, you're just expanding your value from that integration, and vice versa. If it's shot in Spain, distributed in Spain, and then has a global release, you're gaining on that investment. I think the other piece is what I talked about on this globalization, and this is just where my heart is when it comes to this, is entertainment has this power to connect audiences to different cultures, to different worlds, to different experiences, and really connect the world in a different way than we've seen before. And I think brands have this powerful opportunity to empower these storylines to be created, to drive those storylines forward, and be that global teller of truths to change the world, hopefully.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a very good answer. Very, very good. Your mom must be very proud of you. Your second generation. Let's move into what the audience Q&A, because there are a few. Actually, there's some in the chat too. So the first one I think is very important is, what advice would you give to brands that have never invested in product placement before?
Yeah, I think the advice that I give to brands is, this is a relationship business. First, let us all make you believe in the power of integration. I think once we get there, understand that no's will happen, and that's an okay thing. That's a good thing, because we're not going to force fit it. And if you embrace the creative and if you embrace the storytelling, you will want to invest in this forever. General Motors has been our client for 40 years because they have embraced this landscape and they've invested in it and they see the power of it. And I think sometimes the challenge that we face is we can't tell you up front that we're going to work on XYZ show and this is exactly how it's going to look, because it's in disservice to the brand and it's in disservice to the creative.
Yeah, that's really great. Another question that we have from Erin, how do companies avoid having their brands appear in content in a negative way? This is a very good question, Erin.
Oh, my favorite question. Be proactive in this space. I think a lot of brands have a very reactive strategy, especially big brands that aren't active in this space. They might have a PR team that says yes, provides clearance to things, but then you can end up in a really negative situation. So there are two great series out there right now, Euphoria, both from HBO, interestingly enough. Like, you have Euphoria, you have And Just Like That had really disparaging integrations for brands within them because it was good for the storyline. But if you had a proactive program in place, you work with the prop master, you work with the producers, you protect yourselves from the bad situations, and you can find the right situations in those series.
Oh, that's good. Another one, are you seeing any adoption of digital product placement done in post-production?
Absolutely. I mean, we've been doing digital integration post-production my entire career. I mean, we've represented Xbox since the launch of Xbox, which I think was like 2000. And so we've been creating gameplay and digitally inserting it in post-production since that time. So it's funny. I love seeing all of this conversation around digital insertion and companies really investing in this space, because we have been doing it, but we strongly believe in that storytelling and integrating into the story and being a part of that story. And even with Xbox, even though we're doing digital insertion, we're still a part of that story. And there's this dynamic that's happening far beyond just the digital insertion.
You brought up a very good point that I was already thinking about. And Linda actually asked it. What about the integration in gaming? Because gaming is huge. I have a gaming breakfast coming up, small shameless plug in July. And that's a big way that a lot of a younger demographic, yeah, I said that right. They are looking and getting their products. That's how they're seeing these lines for Supreme and this and that. So I'd love to hear a little bit more on that.
Oh, I think gaming is a huge opportunity, and the investments that we're seeing in gaming right now are really exciting to me. I mean, to me, gaming in the metaverse, that's where the metaverse is being driven by, right? And this is where all the testing and learning is going to happen for the futures of metaverse. So when I think about my future for the metaverse, it's going to be going to a concert with you and we can be right next to each other. That's not where I'm at right now. I'm not a metaverse person because it's very gaming focused, but I think brands have an incredible opportunity, and they have for quite some time. And I remember when gaming integrations used to take about 1.5 to 3 years to see come to fruition because games took so long to build. And now you're getting, updates on a monthly basis. And so brands have a really amazing opportunity from a gaming perspective.
Oh, that buzzword, the metaverse.
I know.
I'm trying to figure out if I should just start buying land there. Magical buying land there. We have
I'm gonna wait, but let's talk about that.
No, it's coming. I don't know. It's very expensive here in Los Angeles to buy, so maybe the metaverse is the way to go. One last question: how do you determine the mix model for brand integration?
Yeah, so that really comes in the onboarding session with a brand, or even when we're talking to them up front. What exactly do they want to see, and when do they want to see it? But we look at everything we do is this streaming opportunity. Even feature films are streaming now, especially. I mean, pandemic accelerated that exponentially. I mean, Disney was looking at that as like a 10-year plan, and now it's a now plan. So for us, we don't look at different distributors as a media mix. We look at overall content, character, and context as the media mix for a brand. If that makes sense, it's just become so much more fluid in our space because the distribution has changed in the last 2 years.
Wow. Erin, you are just phenomenal. You really are. I feel like, from a novice with her book from like 10 years ago, you've really taught us a lot of information. So we just thank you